Imagine a war that kicks off with this massive, overwhelming air campaign, but ends up putting the entire global economy on the brink. Well, that's pretty much the story of the 2026 Iran war. So today, we're going to break down how this whole thing started, how it was fought, and why we're still feeling the shockwaves all around the world. All right, here's how we're going to tackle this. First up, we'll look at the simmering tensions that finally just boiled over. Then, we'll dive right into the huge initial attack and, of course, Iran's ferocious response. After that, we're going to zoom out a bit to see the global ripple effect, before we get to the toughest question of all. In a war like this one, what does winning even mean? So yeah, how did we get here? Conflicts like this one rarely just pop up out of the blue. This was really a slow burn. Think of it like a pressure cooker of provocations and military buildups that, finally just had to explode. As you can see on this timeline here, the path to war was really paved over 8 super critical months. It all started with this short but really brutal fight between Iran and Israel that left Iran's military in bad shape. But instead of backing down, Tehran went on this frantic rearmament spree. And the US saw that and responded by pouring its own forces into the region. Honestly, by the time the diplomats met for one last try in Oman, the die was already cast. Now this right here is a crucial piece of the puzzle. You might be asking, how in the world did Iran rebuild so fast? Well, the answer lies with what some have called the axis of upheaval. You've got countries like China, Russia, and North Korea stepping in, providing everything from high-tech missile parts, those so-called dual-use items that have both civilian and military uses, to advanced air defenses. This wasn't just a little help. It was a strategic lifeline that made Iran a huge military threat again in record time. So that brings us to the main event, the massive joint U.S.-Israeli military operation that launched on February 28, 2026. This is what officially kicked off the war. And the White House did not mince words. As President Trump laid it out, the goals were, they were audacious. This was not about just blowing up a few missile sites. The aim was to permanently end Iran's nuclear ambitions, completely dismantle its military, and ultimately topple the regime itself. This was a strategy of total transformation. The attack itself was known by 2 different names, which kind of reflects the 2 main partners here. The United States called its side of things Operation Epic Fury, while Israel dubbed its campaign Operation Roaring Lion. And the scale of this initial assault was just staggering. We're talking about a first wave that saw nearly 200 American and Israeli jets swarming into Iranian airspace all at once. And in just a matter of hours, those jets struck something like 500 different targets. I mean, everything from air defense radar to hidden missile silos. And the human cost was immediate. Over 200 people were killed in just that first night, including what was a truly devastating blow to the regime, the death of Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei. So, beyond that shocking decapitation strike, what were the specific military goals? Well, the strategy was really to systematically break the 4 main pillars of Iran's power. First, neutralize its nuclear program. Second, destroy its long-range missiles. Third, sink its navy. And fourth, cut off the proxy forces it uses to project power all over the region. But Iran didn't just sit there and absorb this massive blow. No. Its response was immediate, it was widespread, and it transformed the conflict from a targeted strike on Iran into a full-blown regional crisis. Iran's comeback was incredibly swift and sweeping. They unleashed this storm of missiles and drones, but just look at where they were aiming. This wasn't just about hitting back at Israel. No way. They targeted U.S. bases in 5 different countries and struck deep into Saudi Arabia. The message they were sending was crystal clear. If you attack us, the entire region is going to burn with you. And this is where Iran played its trump card. It used its most powerful economic weapon, shutting down the Strait of Hormuz. With that single move, it basically put a chokehold on one of the most vital arteries of the entire global energy supply. And that one act, closing the strait, meant the war was no longer just a regional problem. All of a sudden, it became everyone's problem. That move sent immediate shockwaves through the world's economy and completely upended global politics. To really get the impact here, you just need to know this one number, 20%. That's how much of the entire world's daily oil supply passes through that one narrow choke point. So when you turn off that tap, you are basically guaranteeing a global economic crisis. The result was as predictable as it was painful.
global energy costs went through the roof. For folks in the US, that meant gas prices shot up to levels we hadn't seen in years, which created this massive political problem at home and, frankly, an economic headache for the entire world. But the economic pain, that was only part of the problem. For the US, this war created a strategic nightmare. You see, for years, the big focus had been shifting to confront Russia in Europe and China in the Pacific. This conflict yanked America's attention and its most advanced military hardware right back to the Middle East, the very region it had been trying to pivot away from.
So who benefits when America gets distracted? Well, its biggest rivals, of course. For Russia, this was a double win. Suddenly, Ukraine was getting fewer of those advanced American air defense systems, while Moscow was raking in cash from those high oil prices. At the same time, China was looking across the Pacific and seeing fewer U.S. warships, which, as you can imagine, set off all kinds of alarms about its intentions toward Taiwan.
All of which brings us to the final and most crucial question that just hangs over this entire conflict. After all the chaos, all the destruction, who is actually winning this thing?
It sounds like a simple question, right? But the answer isn't simple at all, because it all depends on your definition of victory. Is it about sinking ships and blowing up military bases? Or is it about making the war so incredibly costly for your enemy that they just can't afford to keep fighting? By one measure, the US and Israel are winning, and winning decisively. I mean, look at the data here. They've achieved stunning tactical success. They've practically wiped out Iran's navy, they've halved its missile arsenal, and they've taken out hundreds of its senior leaders. But, and this is a huge but, by another measure, Iran is achieving its strategic goals. It has successfully destabilized the global economy, it's stretched American power to its breaking point, and it's proven that it can inflict pain on a global scale, even when it's outmatched on the battlefield.
And, of course, underneath this whole strategic chess match, there lies a devastating reality. The war has inflicted this staggering human and structural toll, leaving a scar on the physical and political landscape of the Middle East that is probably going to last for a generation. And so, we're left with this paradox. Iran's military is shattered, yet its strategy of inflicting global pain is working. And this leaves everyone, from generals in the Pentagon to leaders all around the world, wrestling with the one question that nobody seems to have an answer to. Tell me how this ends.